Well, Tuesday wrestling is interesting with what happened in NWA Shockwave. Nothing much happened in AEW Dark, but however, Impact Wrestling had some interesting things that's going to happen in the upcoming in 2021. But we're also going to throw in a non-Tuesday wrestling that only appears on Monday, which is Ring of Honor. No, I'm not talking about Raw because I don't watch Raw anymore. But however, let's talk about what I just say on this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling from AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, many promotions, wrestlers, matches, and of course, championships. Now, let's start with what happened in NWA Shockwave. Now, keep in mind, some of these episodes have already been broadcast on the United Wrestling Network prime time, which you can see on Fight TV or any way you can broadcast. But they have been showing a lot of the NWA stars appearing in it. Now, the first thing they had is an interview with Aaron Stevens, who at the time was the NWA National champion, but he called it the third degree National Championship, facing off against Murdoch. So he was confident enough to believe that he will walk out as the champion, that he is all those things that many of the heels would say. But let's get to the first match. First match is a women's match with Nicole Savoy versus, of course, the former NWA Women's World Champion, Allison Kay. The match was pretty interesting. Now, if you guys know Nicole Savoy, she also made an appearance on AEW, same thing with Allison Kay. But however, the match was interesting in the end, how it was pulled off. I'd never expected how Allison Kay would pull off a pin where she had to bend down to make sure she get the pin on one, to put Nicole Savoy in one leg. That was an amazing maneuver I never expected out of her. And she won the match by doing something great. I love it. Next match we had is the Pope teaming up with Eric Watts, facing against Effie and Dickie Zeiss. Now, Dickie Zeiss, he's a cocky dude. So basically, you know who he is. He thinks that he's the bigger star. But the match was pretty much exactly I hoped for because, as you know, the Pope and Watts are all business. But Ziggy Dice is all about, thinking he's the most valuable person that he is, that people are there to watch him. And Effie, if you guys know who he is, he's well known throughout the promotions of what he can do. But however, the match ended in the favor of the Pope and Watts. But what happened in post-match, Ziggy Dice took offense to the loss, attacked the Pope, beating him, spitting at his face, all this other stuff. But the Pope, on the other hand, in his post-match promo that he posted out, he feels that Ziggy Dice, what he did is crossing the line, that he has no respect for those who are there in the ring, because Ziggy Dice feels like he's a sore loser. So basically, you're going to see the Pope maybe facing off against Ziggy Dice. I haven't seen much of the primetime stuff yet, but I'll get to those when I get an opportunity of those. Now let's get to the main event, which was for the NWA National Championship, which by Aaron Stevens, he calls it the third degree National Championship, which is ridiculous. The match was so brutal that Aaron Stevens would do anything to ensure he wins this match. He's always been a coward during Power and Superpower. Run away with it. He has no intentions in defending the title, only to just hold it, saying that he is the top talent. But however, it did end it with Trevor Murdoch finally winning the national championship away from Aaron Stevens. And of course, post match interview, he didn't know what to say, but he did say that thanks to the support of his wife and kids who've been there for him. So basically, he's in awe that he won this prestigious title. So there'll be more to come on the NWA Shockwave. I will keep following what's going to happen. Hopefully, I can coincide what happened in prime time. So let's move on with AEW Dark. Okay, AEW Dark, they only had almost a 2 hour show. We have seen them, they reached over 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and a half. But this time it did not. They might have tried to cool it down a bit or whatever the scenario was. First match of the night was, hope I pronounced it right, Sothera Chun versus Absolute Ricky Starks, being accompanied by Powerhouse Hobbs. But you can guess right about now that Ricky Starks won with the Rochambeau finisher that he normally pulls out. Then the next match we had Baron Black versus Brandon Cutler, who is undefeated, but however, could he remain undefeated? The answer to that, I'm going to tell you anyway, is yes. He won. He maintained his undefeated streak right now. I think it was somewhere between 5 or 7 in a row. So that's kind of interesting to see. Next match is a women's match between Kylan King versus our current AEW Women's Champion, Hikaru Shida. The match was pretty good. I did enjoy. I love Shida, how she's a fantastic striker. And of course, this match allowed her to win. But however, she was attacked by none other than Abaddon. As you know, it appears that Abaddon is making a play to grab the AEW Women's Championship. I know there's been many women who's been wanted a shot of it. Thunder Rosa, Anna Jay. I can name a few others. Oh, yeah, and Nyla Rose, of course. But we'll see what happens in the upcoming weeks if there's going to be a future match with those two coming up. Now we go through another segment of none other than The Waiting Room, hosted by Britt Baker. Their special guest of the night is, of course, Shawn Spears and Tully Blanchard. It appears everything was going great for them, but however, Shawn Spears was attacked by none other than Scorpio Sky. But the best part that I like is when he threw him right through a wall. He just went right through it. Thought it was insane. Of course, Britt Baker was not happy, but however, she took the brighter side that Tony Khan is going to pay for the whole thing. Yeah, so she's taking advantage of that. So the reason that happened is because Shawn Spears does not want to give him another opportunity because, of course, we know what happened. He cheated his way through by using that loaded glove that he normally does. But this time, it looks like maybe he's getting under Shawn Spears' skin. I hope this one makes him go, okay, you'll get another opportunity. Now, the next match is a tag team match. We have the Captain Shawn Dean facing off against Fuego del Sol. No, Shawn Dean teaming up with Fuego del Sol versus Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. I don't need to tell you exactly how the details are. You can guess, and that the winners are the Jurassic Express, as always, because we know they're the fan favorite from many people who watch these guys. Then we had all of a sudden an unexpected guest commentator for this women's match that was coming up. We had none other than La Mera Mera herself, Thunder Rosa. So she was checking out this match between Skylar Moore and, of course, who was it again? Leva Bates. Now, as we know, we've been seeing Leva Bates has been on a really good win streak of recently in a couple weeks since she broke away from from Peter Avalon, which is good. But it was a good match, not gonna lie. But of course, the entire time, Thunder Rosa doesn't know what to make of Britt Baker's attacks, but You know how that goes. We might see those two face off each other down the line in the future, which is expected. But however, the match goes to Leva Bates as always. Next match, we got the VSK versus Brian Cage. As you know, Brian Cage is the most dominant. There were moments where, of course, Brian Cage was taking a little too forever, trying not to be cocky, but more, how do I say, a bit of a show off. That could have cost Brian Cage, but he was able to ensure that he picks up the victory at the end of the match, and that's exactly what he did. Taz may have been upset that Taz did not stick to the plan, but however, a win's a win on his book, as always. Then we have another tag team match. We have Louis Valley teaming with Mike Magnum versus none other than this dudes, the Acclaim. As you know, they're set to schedule to face SCU to debut in AEW Dynamite. So this was a bit of a warm up before we get to see them on Dynamite. And of course, they did. Excuse me. But this match was interesting. I've seen now that the Acclaim are getting well recognized as a well established tag team, and of course, we could see them more in the future in Dynamite. And of course, they picked up the victory, if you can guess, since they're now officially in the roster. Next match, we have a women's match. We have Danny Jordan facing off against number 99, Anna Jay. Of course, you can guess that she won by using the Queenslayer chokehold on her, which is what made her famous when she took out Brandy Rhodes. So she won her match by that way, by submission. Then Peter Avalon shows up doing commentary. I don't know what he was doing. Said he was scouting. Maybe he's planning to form a faction of his own. I'm not sure. But however, I don't know if any of these guys fit the criteria because we had Bear Country, which consisted of these guys called Bear Bronson and Bear Boulder versus Dark Order members Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. Now, however, this match was far more interesting to me because I started to see the Bear Country, what they can do in the ring. It was a really good match. I did like it, even though these guys are jobbers, the Bear Country. I would pay attention to them if they decide to show up again. I would love to see more what these guys can do. Excuse me, folks. But however, the match ended in Dark Order's favors, as always, with the finisher move, the Fatality. Next match we have is tag team match. We have Ryzen teaming with Sean Maluda, facing off against the Concrete Rose, Sonny Kiss, and the bad boy, Joey Janela. And you can guess, once again, Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela won. If you guys notice all the time, there's always a pattern in these type of AEW Dark matches. Then we have Freya the Slayer States versus Tay Conti. As you know, Tay Conti has been appearing on AEW over time, ever since she appeared on the women's tag team tournament. But she won by an impressive submission move. As you know, she's trained in jiu-jitsu and any other type of martial arts status that she put it. Very impressive as always. Next match we have Danny Limelight, who is a SoCal recognizable independent wrestler, facing off against the veteran Matt Sydal. And of course, you cannot deny Matt Sydal's new and improved stature to what he can do now in the ring, which I'm a fan now. So he won the match. Next match, we have the debut of Casey Lennox versus La Sicaria, Ivelisse. And you can guess it's this one, where we have Ivelisse winning as always, putting her in a submission move. She nearly did not want to let go, but she won anyway. Main event, we have Project Chaos versus the Best Friends. Good match. I'm a fan of both these teams, but Best Friends took the victory on this one as always. But however, it appears that this rivalry between the Best Friends against Miro and Kip is far from over. So it still continues on. I don't know when they'll have these two to face off. I will love to see it. But we just gotta wait in the upcoming weeks. So I think that's it right now with AEW Dark. So let's jump in with Impact Wrestling. Okay, Impact Wrestling has just come out of their latest pay per view, which is the last of 2020, which is Final Resolution. They did throw in a bit of recaps. One of them is, of course, the biggest news and buzz that's been happening in the wrestling world. Is Kenny Omega, who made his appearance in Impact Wrestling after winning the AEW Championship back in Winter's Coming. But also, they showed the recap of Final Resolution with title exchanges, some interesting matches that won, and all this, that. Now, it started out with Caleb with the K with his usual shenanigans, with Tennille Dashwood facing off against Alicia Edwards, who she's being accompanied by none other than her husband, Eddie Edwards. The match seems like it was going great, but however, Caleb with the K once again decides to interfere, took out Eddie. Alicia took out Caleb, but Tennille took advantage of it and decided to use that against her to allow her to win. But however, the rivalry between Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan is far from over. But it appears in post match, Sami is giving like a final ultimatum for what I believe could be a final fight between these two. So we may have to see that when it comes. I'm assuming it's going to take place in Genesis on January 6th. That is something I probably would like to see. But we'll see where they're going to go with it. Now, as you know, of course, there was an interview with the Motor City Machine Guns. Now they got rid of Larry D and Triple XL. They have noticed now in the recent weeks about the dissolve between the North, knowing that Josh Alexander has been unhappy with the ego that Ethan Page has done, but also he now knows they have to go through to get in order to obtain the Impact World Tag Team titles. They have to go through, of course, the Good Brothers. So basically, they said something about Karl Anderson, but unaware to them, Karl Anderson is hearing this too while he's hanging out with Don Callis and Kenny Omega. But of course, Kenny and Don Callis stirred things up to turn him into, once again, the Machine Gun. Yes, folks, if you're new to this, Karl Anderson was known as the Machine Gun. It was a name that was given to him during his time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you guys haven't seen him yet, then you should. He has been in many great matches during that time. But however, when he was on his way back, he was confronted by Willie Mack. As you know, Willie Mack has played trying to be the team leader in the Impact locker room as the world champion. But however, Karl Anderson doesn't need to hear this. But he did set up a match for himself against Chris Sabin, all this and that. So that is something that later was booked as the main event for the night. Now, while all of that happened, once again, we have faced the presence of none other than the self-proclaimed TNA World Champion. I'm talking about Moose. Moose, on the other hand, has an agenda where he wants to send a message to Rick Swan, but however, he's being confronted by Willie Mack, who he said put him out of his misery, made sure he cannot compete for a couple weeks or however his injuries were severe. But he did stated that he wants to face Moose at at Genesis in an I Quit match. So this is something he's willing to do. But Moose kind of gave him, "Are you sure that's what you want?" But of course, Willie Mack is not afraid of anything, so he's up for it. And that is something that shows a lot of courage out of Willie Mack. But however, will be this enough to do that? But of course, because of this happened, there was a brawl that took out one of the security guards messed up Moose's shirt and he took him out. So basically, but however, during his interview when he's leaving, he gave a brief statement about Willie Mack that he's already used to all this anger that he is in. So basically, he's using all this anger into his advantage in order to win. So we'll see what happens in the when we get to Genesis. Now, as you know, Rohit Raju has been unhappy with the result of what happened in Final Resolution, where Manic, or should I say, TJP actually took the X Division Championship away from Rohit Raju. But however, Chris Bay had a plan that says, what if we unmask him, expose him to the world that, oh, Manic is TJP and Impact Wrestling has no other choice but to award back the Impact Wrestling title to Rohit Raju. And of course, Rohit fell for it. Now, we'll get to that match in a bit as we go. And of course, they did another advertisement with AEW. As you know, Kenny Omega made his appearance. And that is something we gotta pay attention because now it appears AEW's presence has been mostly been helping Impact Wrestling boost their viewership, that sort of thing. Now, after what happened in Final Resolution with Cody Deaner betraying his own cousin Jake, it appears that Eric Young is teaching him of why is he doing this. Eric Young is saying that that what's going on is a disease, that everything that he thought was true was nothing but a lie, a disease that played him and all this other stuff. So he's kind of like embracing his ideology. But the more it happened, he was starting to understand what Eric Young's ideology is all about. You know, it's all psychological thing that's been happening with Eric Young. But at the moment, near the end of the show, it kind of showed that finally, Cody Deaner embraces the Eric Young's ideology about how he says that this world doesn't belong to them. It belongs to him and whoever sides with him. So basically, he feels like he's reborn. He accepted the ideology, which is kind of insane, but it's an interesting story. Now, we get to the match in a non-title match with Chris Bay along with Rohit Raju versus Manic. The match was pretty interesting, but however, as much as the match was that good when it comes to Manic, something happened. Rohit Raju attacked Suicide, making the match in favor, but he also sucker punched Chris Bay. And that's when we saw the smile on his face. Did he play Rohit Raju in a way that Rohit Raju played him? You got to remember, Rohit Raju weaseled his way in order to obtain the X Division title from him. So, in my opinion, Rohit Raju made this mess happen. He should have known it was going to happen, but it did not. So it's all his fault. Excuse me. Now, as you know, they throw in this Impact Plus flashback moment of the week. This time they showed Final Resolution of 2006. They have It's Sting. Yes, he's in it. Pretty cool. I've always did like Sting. Like some people say his time with TNA was a mistake or whatever. But come on, you cannot deny Sting is one of the best iconic wrestlers ever. Now, as you know, the North has been somewhat dissolving because of this whole situation losing the tag team titles. Josh Alexander told Ethan Page he needs help. And that's what he said he would do. And he mentioned, we're going to do that. We? Who's we? But all of a sudden, he has someone who was nosing around. I'm talking about the most professional wrestler, Brian Myers, who's trying to tell him he should ditch him and join him because he's legendary in tag team wrestling. You know, and that may be true, but however, there's no way Josh is going to accept it. But of course, Josh has been in a bad mood since then. He decided that he was going to pick a fight with him instead, which it did happen. Now, once again, Kenny Omega and Don Callis would try to stir things up again with Karl Anderson because he booked himself in the match to face against Chris Sabin. Now, Karl Anderson knew what they were trying to do, but he was going to fight him anyway. That's what Karl Anderson would do. So basically, he's trying to show him, I can do this, you know, being a bigger man than any other person, which is kind of interesting to see. Now we get into the semifinals of the Knockouts Tag Team titles between Kiera Hogan versus Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz versus Tail Valkyrie and Rosemary. The match seems like it was going great, but however, it was interrupted by a very bitter Deonna Purrazzo and Kimberly. As you know, Deonna Purrazzo, who currently has the Knockouts Championship, she's upset that Rosemary and Tal Valkyrie took the opportunity away from her for her to be a double champion, and they wanted payback. So it looks like this is far from over, even though Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz most likely could be the fan favorites to win. But however, I don't think that's going to happen in that way because something just happened. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on this one. Oh no, I should say, as soon as they won the match, they go back to the dressing room gloating about everything. But they had to confront the elephant in the room. I'm talking about what happened in Final Resolution, where they were supposed to give Hernandez back the money that Falabal stole from them and from what they stole from him. Apparently, Tasha Steele said that the money was in there. But all of a sudden they were being spoiled none other by the weirdo, Johnny Swinger. And of course Swinger, he's not trying to act like he thinks he's a total stud, even though Tasha and Kara are not having it. They don't want to be around him. So that's it. But what the interesting part happened is when Johnny Swinger found the fanny pack that supposed to have the wads of cash that they were supposed to return to Hernandez was actually not stolen. It appears that Tasha Steelz might have kept it to herself. He found a secret compartment and decided to keep it. And I think this is going to be one of those matches where, they're going to lose it. Now, that is one of the possibilities I could speculate in the finals in Hard to Kill for the Knockouts Tag Team titles. So, we'll just wait and see when we get there. Now, the next match we have is Josh Alexander versus Brian Myers. As you know, Brian Myers put him in a bad mood. The match was great, but however, you saw Ethan Page, who was there to support Josh Alexander, but Brian Myers was not having it, so he slammed him near the ringside post and took him out. But all of a sudden, Karate Man shows up and disqualified Josh Alexander from the match. Everything is becoming weird. Like, a lot of things is happening with him, but you don't know what to expect. So that's pretty much what's been happening. So it looks like the North are dissolving more and more and more. Now, we normally see certain times with Tommy Dreamer, he's dealing with certain situations. That, however, as you know, he locked up Larry D. Now, AC Romero, Larry D's partner, will do whatever it takes to get him out. So he has to prove Larry D's innocence, even though his alter ego was the one that killed and tried to shoot Johnny E. Bravo. But of course, he gave advice with Cousin Jake and Rhino after what the recent events took place with Eric Young and Joe Dorian, and now Cody Deaner. That is something they had to confront. So now they're realizing they need each other for this. So that's what they're going to do. Now we get to the main event, which is Karl Anderson versus Chris Sabin along with Alex Shelley. The match it appears majority of the time was going into Carl Anderson's favor, which is good because they're establishing their dominance that they should be, even though we may see a somewhat version of the Bullet Club together. But the match ended in a way where somehow Carl Anderson stole this match. Rich Swann wasn't liking it. Post match, Anderson sucker punched him out. Here comes the Motor City Machine Guns. He was helped out by none other than the return of Doc Gallows, and then Rich Swann took out Doc Gallows, but not until he was attacked by none other than Kenny Omega. Now, he did stated that why not make this into a six-man tag team match, him as the AEW champion, teaming with the Good Brothers versus Rich Swann and Motor City Machine Guns. That is something we're probably going to see. So it's already been set to Hard to Kill, and this is going to be Kenny Omega's debut with Impact Wrestling under the AEW banner. This is going to be an interesting match to watch. I hope you guys get a chance to see it like I do. I am excited. It's going to take place in January. Hopefully, I'll give more information on that and see what other matches we're going to get on that time. So I think we're done with doing a Tuesday wrestling. So let's throw in the side on Monday, Ring of Honor. Okay, so it's Ring of Honor time. Last week there was a bit of a bitter rivalry between two groups. Righteous, that consists of Vincent and Bateman, taking off the OG Kingdom members, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Now, this seems like this rivalry between both groups is not going to end, but somehow they have to make it end, and they're going to do that. So now it's been revealed that Matt Taven and Mike Bennett will team up to face against Righteous, Vincent, and Bateman at Final Battle this coming Friday. So I will cover that one too as well. Hope you guys get to hear it, watch it, and I'll review that maybe the following day. Now let's talk to two of the matches they have. First match was a tag team match, which is the Bouncers versus Mark Briscoe and PCO. Now you're saying, wait a minute, where's his brother Jay? Well, he's dealing with his issues with none other than EC3, so he picked the Monster to be. It was a pretty interesting match to watch between seeing Mark Briscoe teaming with someone else who's not his brother. I think that is like an interesting dynamic that we have been witnessing on this. But this match means important to both teams. Now, whoever wins this could be on a title hunt for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship that is currently being held by none other than Jonathan Gresham and Jay Lethal of the Foundation. But however, there has to be a winner. I was surprised the winner was none other than Mark Briscoe and PCO. I'm excited to see where they're going to go. We'll see the final battle when we get there. Now we get into an interesting match, which is Pure Wrestling Rules, which is Flip Gordon versus Josh Woods. Now, some of you are saying, wait a minute, isn't a Flip a high flyer? Yes. But Flip felt that he decided to change. He said this, that seems like he was ready to prepare for a world title match against Rush. But however, when Ring of Honor made the decision to bring back Pure Championship, which leads to Pure Wrestling, he felt that he should have been on that hunt for it. But now it appears that he will face Jonathan Gresham to hopefully win some gold. But however, he has to face against the opponent that Jay Lethal faced and lost to, Josh Woods. The match was alright. There's been a little bit of limited flips where we saw moonsault and all this other stuff. The match was great. I did enjoy Flip Gordon winning the match, how he managed to adapt a little bit of the Pure Wrestling as much as possible, not fully extended, but hopefully he gets additional training to do that. I'm excited for that. So we will see Flip Gordon this coming Friday against Jonathan Gresham, where he's going to be facing off twice in one night. So I think we got covered all of things on this one. So let's try to move on to news updates. Okay, so here's the news updates. It's been Pro Wrestling Sheet has announced that Jake Christ is no longer part of Impact Wrestling. They parted ways. Now you probably say to yourselves, "Wait a minute, J. Rod, wasn't he supposed to have been released?" No, that was his brother Dave Christ. He was terminated from his contract due to sexual allegations that were made during the Speaking Out movement back in June. Jake Christ was never mentioned or anything else. We do know he and his brother have been successful as a tag team, but however, we don't know why we haven't seen him. If his brother Dave was released from these allegations that were made against him, why we haven't seen him. We do know the last time we saw him, he joined a faction with Joey Ryan, um, consistent with him, RVD, and Katie Forbes. But now we know, as you know, Joey Ryan has been terminated because of the allegations that were made against him during the Speaking Out movement. RVD and Katie Forbes are no longer part of Impact Wrestling. So basically, I don't think they had anything for Dave Chris. I mean, he's been a tag team champion with Impact and also a X Division champion. So it's still unclear what he's gonna do now that he's no longer with the company. So we'll see what future endeavors he has. Hopefully, he can return to wrestling, but I'm not sure about his brother Dave after what went down with him. So I think that's it for now for all of you guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode reviewing Tuesday Wrestling and plus Ring of Honor and this news update about Dave Christ. So I must bid all of you guys adieu. So goodbye. Mwah, and have a nice day. Bang!